Chapter 1. The City Where Money Goes to Disappear. In 2024, a single apartment in Geneva sold for 93 million Swiss francs. No one knows who bought it. No journalist found the name. No public record exists. That is Geneva, a city of 200,000 people, sitting at the tip of a lake so clean you can see 12 meters to the bottom. A city where Rolex, Patek Philippe, and the United Nations share the same zip code, where 1 in 5 residents is a millionaire, and where entire fortunes vanish into vaults carved deep beneath the Alps. Geneva is not loud, it does not flash, it whispers, and the whisper says one thing: your secret is safe here. But here is what nobody tells you. Behind the private banks and chocolate shops, behind the diplomatic immunity and the lake views, Geneva operates on a system so precise, so deliberately constructed, that the world's wealthiest families have trusted it with their bloodlines for over 500 years. Today, we are going to walk through this city, street by street, vault by vault, and show you exactly why the richest people on Earth chose this tiny Swiss city over London, over New York, over Singapore, and what it actually costs to live inside the world's most expensive secret. If you find this fascinating, hit subscribe right now. We cover the world's most extraordinary cities every single week, and trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming next. Drop a comment below telling me what city you want us to explore after this one. Now let us begin. Chapter 2. The Geography That Built a Fortress. Look at a map of Switzerland. Find the southwestern corner, where the country narrows into a thin finger of land, almost entirely surrounded by France. At the very tip of that finger, pressed against the shores of Lake Geneva, sits the city itself. This is not an accident. Geneva's geography is its first layer of protection. The city is surrounded by mountains on 3 sides: the Jura Range to the northwest, the Alps to the south and east. Lake Geneva, 116 square kilometers of deep glacial water, forms a natural moat along its southern edge. For centuries, any army approaching Geneva had to funnel through narrow alpine passes or cross open water. Most gave up before they arrived. But the geography does something else. It isolates. Geneva is closer to Lyon, France, than it is to Zurich, Switzerland. It sits 150 kilometers from the nearest major Swiss city. This physical separation gave Geneva something invaluable: independence. While the rest of Switzerland built its identity around German-speaking cantons and farming valleys, Geneva built its identity around French-speaking commerce, diplomacy, and discretion. The lake itself is worth understanding. Locals call it Lac Léman. It holds 89 cubic kilometers of fresh water, fed by the Rhône Glacier high in the Valais Alps. The jet d'eau, that famous fountain shooting 140 meters into the air, pushes 500 liters per second from the lake's surface. It was originally a pressure valve for the city's hydraulic network in 1886. Someone noticed it looked beautiful. They kept it. The climate is temperate. Summers reach 25 to 28 degrees. Winters hover around 0 but rarely plunge into extreme cold. The lake moderates everything. Snow falls, but gently. Rain comes, but briefly. The result is a city that feels calm in every season. Never too hot, never too harsh. A city designed by nature to feel permanent. And permanence is exactly what money seeks. Chapter 3. 500 Years of Banking Secrecy. In 1536, a French theologian named John Calvin arrived in Geneva and turned it into the Protestant capital of Europe. Calvin banned Catholic excess, banned gambling, banned theater, but he did something else, something most history books skip over entirely. He made lending money morally acceptable. Before Calvin, Christianity considered charging interest a sin. Catholic doctrine forbade it. Jewish moneylenders filled the gap across Europe and faced persecution for it. Calvin rewrote the theology. He argued that lending at reasonable interest was not sinful, but productive. Money should work, capital should flow. Geneva's bankers heard this and built an industry. By the 1700s, Geneva had become the private banking capital of the world. Wealthy French aristocrats, terrified of their own revolution, smuggled gold across the border into Geneva's vaults. The bankers did not ask where it came from. They did not report it to any king. They simply held it, quietly, generation after generation. In 1934, Switzerland passed the Federal Banking Act. Article 47 made it a criminal offense for any banker to reveal client information. Not a civil matter, a criminal one. Bankers who talked faced prison. This was not a suggestion, it was law. For 80 years, Swiss banking secrecy was absolute. Dictators, arms dealers, tax evaders, and legitimate billionaires all used the same system. The banks did not judge, they simply stored. Now, things have changed. In 2014, Switzerland signed the Common Reporting Standard, agreeing to share financial information with over 100 countries. In 2018, automatic exchange of information began. The old secrecy died, partially. But here is what most people miss. The culture of discretion did not die with the law. Geneva bankers still do not discuss clients at dinner parties. They still do not appear in newspapers. They still build relationships that last 4 generations. The legal secrecy is gone, but the behavioral secrecy remains embedded in the city's DNA like calcium in bone. Walk into a private bank on Rue de Rhône today. No sign on the door, no logo, just a brass buzzer and a heavy oak entrance. Inside, marble floors, fresh flowers, a receptionist who greets you by name because your grandfather banked here in 1952. That is Geneva banking in 2025. Less secret by law, equally silent by choice. Chapter 4: The tax system that attracts billionaires. Here is how Geneva's tax system actually works, and why it pulls the ultra-wealthy like gravity. Switzerland does not have a single national tax rate. Each of its 26 cantons sets its own. Geneva's canton has among the highest personal income tax rates in Switzerland, reaching up to 44.75% for top earners. On paper, that sounds brutal, but the ultra-wealthy do not pay income tax. They pay something called the lump sum taxation, or forfait fiscal in French. Under this system, a wealthy foreigner who moves to Geneva but does not work in Switzerland can negotiate a flat annual tax payment based not on their actual income but on their living expenses. The minimum taxable base is currently around 400,000 Swiss francs per year, and the effective tax paid is a fraction of what they would owe in their home country. For a billionaire earning 50 million a year in dividends from a holding company in the Cayman Islands, paying Swiss tax only on their estimated living costs in Geneva means their effective tax rate might land between 5 and 8%. Compare that to 45% in the UK, 37% in the US, or 55.9% in Denmark. There is also no capital gains tax on private movable assets in Switzerland. Sell a painting for 40 million? No tax. Sell shares you have held personally? No tax. Sell cryptocurrency? No tax, as long as you qualify as a private investor rather than a professional trader. Inheritance tax in Geneva exists but is modest. Direct descendants, meaning children, pay 0. Spouses pay 0. Only distant relatives and unrelated heirs face meaningful rates. The result is a system that says, bring your money here, spend it here, die here, and your family keeps almost everything. Roughly 5,500 wealthy foreigners currently live in Switzerland under lump sum taxation. Geneva and the canton of Vaud, next door, hold the largest share. These are not small players. We are talking about Formula One drivers, Middle Eastern royals, Russian oligarchs who relocated before 2022, tech founders who sold companies for billions, and old European aristocratic families who have been here since the 1800s. Chapter 5: The Freeport Where Art Vanishes. 10 minutes from Geneva's airport, behind an unremarkable concrete facade, sits one of the most valuable buildings on Earth. No windows, no signs, armed guards, biometric entry climate controlled to exactly 20 degrees Celsius and 50% humidity at all times. This is the Geneva Freeport, and it holds an estimated $100 billion worth of art, wine, gold, diamonds, and antiquities. Some estimates go higher. Nobody knows the true number, because nobody is required to declare what they store inside. Here is how it works. A freeport is legally considered a transit zone. Goods stored there are technically in transit, meaning they have not been imported into Switzerland. Because they have not been imported, no import duty applies, no VAT applies, and in most cases, no capital gains tax applies when the item is sold to another buyer who also stores it in the freeport. A Picasso can be bought for $120 million, stored in the Geneva Freeport, sold 5 years later for $180 million, and the $60 million profit incurs zero tax because the painting never legally entered any country. It moved from one vault to another vault in the same building. On paper, it went nowhere. An estimated 1,200 Picassos sit in this building right now. Tens of thousands of works by Warhol, Rothko, Basquiat, Monet, Rembrandt. Some of the world's greatest masterpieces have not been seen by human eyes in decades. They exist only as entries in a database, appreciating silently in the dark. The same applies to wine. Collectors store millions of bottles here, buying and selling cases of Petrus, Romani Conti, and Screaming Eagle without ever uncorking them. The bottles live their entire lives at a perfect 13 degrees, never tasted, never displayed, just growing in value like stocks in a cellar-shaped portfolio. In 2016, a scandal revealed that the Freeport had been used to store looted antiquities from Syria and Libya. Swiss authorities tightened regulations. New rules require documentation of provenance, but enforcement remains thin. The Freeport operates in a legal gray zone that no country has fully resolved. For the ultra-wealthy, it is perfection, a place where masterpieces generate returns without existing in the public eye, a vault for beauty that no one will ever see. Chapter 6. The cost of living inside the world's most expensive bubble. Let us talk numbers. Real numbers. What does it actually cost to live in Geneva in 2025? Rent first. A one-bedroom apartment in the city center runs between 2,500 and 3,500 Swiss francs per month. A three-bedroom family apartment in a desirable neighborhood like Eaux-Vives or Champel costs 5,000 to 8,000. A villa in Cologne, the waterfront suburb where the billionaires cluster, starts at 15,000 per month and climbs to 40,000 for lake-facing properties. Groceries are shocking if you come from anywhere else. A liter of milk costs 1 franc 80. A kilogram of chicken breast runs 30 to 35 francs. A dozen eggs costs 6 to 7 francs. A bottle of decent Swiss wine from a supermarket runs 12 to 18 francs. A basic lunch at a restaurant costs 25 to 40 francs. A dinner for two at a mid-range restaurant runs 150 to 250 francs without wine. Order a bottle of something reasonable and the bill crosses 350 easily. Health insurance is mandatory and expensive. For a single adult, basic premiums range from 400 to 600 francs per month, depending on the provider and deductible chosen. A family of four easily pays 2,000 per month in premiums alone, and that basic coverage still leaves you paying the first 2,500 francs of medical costs out of pocket each year before insurance covers anything at full rate. Childcare is astronomical. A full-time nursery place for one child costs between 2,000 and 3,500 francs per month. A family with two children in daycare can spend more on childcare than on rent. International schools, which most expat families choose, charge between 25,000 and 45,000 francs per year per child. Some elite schools, like the International School of Geneva, charge over 50,000. Transportation is excellent, but priced accordingly. A monthly public transport pass costs 70 francs, but most Geneva residents own cars, and parking in the city center costs 300 to 500 francs per month. Fuel sits around 1 franc 95 per litre. Car insurance adds another 200 to 400 francs monthly, depending on the vehicle. The total picture: a comfortable middle-class life in Geneva for a family of 4 with 2 children in international school requires a household income of at least 250,000 to 300,000 francs per year. And that is comfortable, not luxurious. No yacht, no villa, no private chef, just a clean apartment, decent food, and an education for your children. For the ultra-wealthy, none of these numbers matter. They spend more on flowers per month than most Geneva families spend on food. But for the working professionals, the diplomats, the NGO employees, the bankers below partner level, Geneva is a city that demands almost everything you earn. Chapter 7: The Diplomatic Shield. Geneva hosts more international organizations than any city on Earth. The European headquarters of the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the International Red Cross, the World Trade Organization, the World Intellectual Property Organization, CERN, where physicists discovered the Higgs boson, the World Economic Forum's administrative base. In total, over 40 international organizations and around 178 permanent diplomatic missions operate in Geneva. This creates something remarkable: a permanent population of roughly 30,000 people who live in Geneva under diplomatic immunity or quasi-diplomatic status. Diplomatic immunity means you cannot be arrested, detained, or prosecuted by Swiss authorities. Your home cannot be searched, your car cannot be towed, your bank accounts cannot be frozen by local courts. For the families of autocrats and controversial political figures, Geneva offers not just banking discretion, but physical legal protection. This is not conspiracy. It is public knowledge. The son of a dictator lives in a lakefront mansion, drives a Bugatti, and cannot be touched by Swiss police for unpaid parking tickets, let alone for the billions his father allegedly stole from a national treasury. Diplomatic status makes him untouchable. Geneva also benefits from Swiss neutrality. Switzerland has not fought a war since 1815. It did not join the European Union. It did not join NATO. It maintains armed neutrality, meaning it will defend its borders but will not take sides in other conflicts. For anyone fleeing political instability, regime change, or international sanctions, Switzerland's neutrality is not just comforting. It is a guarantee that no foreign government can pressure Swiss authorities into freezing your assets or extraditing your family. This combination of international organizations, diplomatic immunity, armed neutrality, and physical safety makes Geneva the ultimate insurance policy for the global elite. Not just a place to store money, but a place to store yourself. Chapter 8: Cologne, the neighborhood where billionaires hide. Drive 5 minutes east of Geneva's city center, past the botanical gardens, up a gentle hill lined with chestnut trees, and you arrive in Cologne. Population 5,300. Average property price among the highest on Earth. Cologne does not look like Beverly Hills. There are no golden gates, no flashing lights, no visible displays of wealth. The mansions hide behind tall hedges, stone walls, and mature trees planted generations ago, specifically to block the view from the road. You could drive through Cologne and think it was a quiet farming village. That is by design. Behind those hedges live some of the wealthiest humans alive: Formula One champions, founders of luxury brands, members of Gulf royal families, heirs to pharmaceutical empires, former heads of state. Their homes face Lake Geneva, with unobstructed views of Mont Blanc rising behind the water. Property in Cologne rarely appears on the open market. Sales happen privately, through word of mouth, between families who have known each other for decades. When a property does surface publicly, prices start around 20 million Swiss francs for a modest lakefront villa and climb past 100 million for the largest estates. In 2023, one estate reportedly traded hands at 140 million. though neither the buyer nor the seller confirmed the figure publicly. The community is deliberately small. Cologne has no nightclubs, no shopping centers, no tourist attractions. It has a church, a school, a few restaurants, and a yacht club. The Foundation Martin Bodmer, a private library holding original manuscripts of Shakespeare, Gutenberg Bibles, and Egyptian papyri, sits quietly on the hill. That is it. Security is invisible but absolute. Private firms patrol the streets around the clock, cameras monitor every entrance. The Swiss police maintain a permanent presence nearby. Residents can reach Geneva International Airport in 12 minutes, making emergency departure possible at any hour. For billionaires, Cologne offers the rarest luxury of all, the ability to be extremely wealthy without anyone noticing. Chapter 9: The Watch Valley and the Industry of Patience. Geneva does not just store wealth, it manufactures objects of wealth. The city and its surrounding canton are home to the highest concentration of luxury watchmakers on Earth. Patek Philippe, founded in 1839, still operates from its headquarters on Rue du Rhône. Rolex, technically headquartered in Geneva since 1919, runs its main manufacturing facilities in nearby Plaine-les-Ouates. Vacheron Constantin, the oldest continuously operating watch manufacturer in the world, founded in 1755, makes every movement by hand in its Geneva atelier. The Geneva Seal, or Poinçon de Genève, is a quality certification that only watches assembled and regulated in the canton of Geneva can receive. It requires that every component meet 12 specific criteria of finishing, precision, and durability. Fewer than 20 brands qualify. It is not a marketing label, it is a legal standard enforced by cantonal authorities. A single Patek Philippe Grand Complication takes over 1,000 hours of hand assembly. One watchmaker might spend an entire year on a single timepiece. The most expensive Patek ever sold at auction, the Grandmaster Chime, went for $31.2 million in 2019. The buyer's name was never released. This industry employs over 10,000 people in the Geneva region. It generates billions in export revenue. But more importantly, it embeds Geneva in the psychology of wealth. When a billionaire wears a Geneva-made watch, they carry the city's identity on their wrist. They become part of a tradition that links their wealth to craftsmanship, patience, and permanence. The watch industry also provides a legal, beautiful, and socially acceptable way to store value on your body. A $200,000 Patek Philippe weighs less than 100 grams and crosses any border without declaration under personal effects rules. Try doing that with $200,000 in cash. Chapter 10: The Education Pipeline for the Global Elite. Geneva and its surrounding region host the highest concentration of elite international boarding schools in the world. This is not coincidence. It is infrastructure built specifically for the children of the ultra-wealthy. Institut Le Rosey, 30 minutes from Geneva, near Rolle, charges 150,000 Swiss francs per year. Students rotate between a lakeside campus in autumn and spring and a ski resort campus in Gstaad during winter. Alumni include kings, shahs, and the children of some of the world's richest families. The waiting list begins at birth. The International School of Geneva, founded in 1924 for the children of League of Nations diplomats, was the first international school ever created. Today, it educates 4,600 students across 3 campuses. Tuition runs 30 to 50,000 francs, depending on grade level. Collège du Le Mans, Institut Florimont, and the Geneva English School all cater to the expat elite, offering the International Baccalaureate alongside Swiss and French curricula. These schools do not just educate, they network. A child who attends Le Rosey at age 12 will sit next to the future heir of a Saudi conglomerate, the daughter of a Brazilian mining magnate, and the grandson of a European banking dynasty. By graduation, their contact list is worth more than most adults earn in a lifetime. This is why billionaires bring their families to Geneva. not just for the banking or the tax benefits, but because their children will be educated alongside other billionaires' children. The social reproduction of wealth requires proximity. Geneva provides it. Chapter 11. Why Geneva is not what you think. Here is the part most travel videos skip. Geneva is not paradise. It is beautiful, safe, clean, and rich. But it is also cold in ways that have nothing to do with temperature. Ask any expat who has lived in Geneva for more than 2 years, and you will hear the same complaint. It is almost impossible to make real friends. Swiss culture, particularly in the French-speaking part, is famously reserved. Neighbors do not knock on your door. Colleagues do not invite you to dinner. Social circles form in childhood and remain sealed for life. You can live next to someone for 5 years and never learn their first name. The city shuts down early. By 10:30 on a weeknight, most restaurants have cleared their tables. The streets go quiet. On Sundays, nearly everything closes. The Swiss value order, quiet, and privacy above almost all else. For an extrovert arriving from New York or Sao Paulo, Geneva can feel like a beautiful prison. There is also the cost pressure. Even high earners in Geneva often describe feeling squeezed. A dual-income professional couple earning 300,000 francs combined can still struggle to save after rent, insurance, childcare, and taxes consume most of their salary. The wealth gap between the ultra-rich and the working professional class is extreme and visible. You see it every day, walking past a Bentley on your way to the bus stop. Loneliness is Geneva's quiet epidemic. International workers come for 3-year contracts and leave without forming a single deep friendship. The transient nature of the expat community means everyone is always leaving. You invest in a relationship and then they relocate to Singapore. Expat forums are filled with posts from people who moved to Geneva with excitement and found themselves eating dinner alone 6 months later, wondering what went wrong. And then there is the bureaucracy. Swiss administration is meticulous, which sounds positive until you need something done quickly. Opening a bank account takes weeks. Registering your address requires an appointment booked a month in advance. Noise complaints from neighbors can result in formal letters from the commune. There are rules about when you can do laundry in shared buildings, when you can take a bath, when you can flush a toilet late at night. For people coming from more relaxed cultures, the rigidity can feel suffocating. This is the trade-off. Geneva gives you safety, beauty, neutrality, and discretion. It takes warmth, spontaneity, connection, and affordability in return. For the ultra-wealthy, this trade is invisible. They have private social circles, household staff, and the freedom to fly anywhere for dinner. For everyone else, Geneva demands resilience. Chapter 12. The future of Geneva's wealth machine. The world is changing, and Geneva knows it. The old model of silent vaults and unnamed accounts is dying. Transparency is increasing. Digital currencies threaten traditional banking. Remote work means talent can live anywhere. Climate change is altering the alpine environment, and younger generations of the ultra-wealthy care less about discretion and more about impact. Geneva is adapting. The city has become a global hub for sustainable finance, with over $100 billion in ESG-focused assets managed from its banks. The UN's Sustainable Development Goals are headquartered here. Geneva's banks now compete not just on secrecy, but on impact reporting, carbon tracking, and ethical investment portfolios. The tech sector is growing. Google employs over 5,000 people at its Geneva campus. Procter & Gamble runs innovation labs here. Blockchain companies have clustered in the broader Swiss ecosystem, attracted by clear regulatory frameworks. Real estate continues climbing. Despite all predictions of correction, Geneva property prices rose another 4.5% in 2024. Demand outstrips supply permanently because the city simply cannot expand. It is locked between the lake, the mountains, and the French border. There is no room to build outward. only upward, and Swiss building codes limit even that. The population is growing slowly but steadily, projected to reach 220,000 by 2035. Immigration remains tightly controlled. Swiss residency permits are difficult to obtain without employer sponsorship or significant wealth. For the foreseeable future, Geneva will remain what it has been for 5 centuries: a small, quiet, extraordinarily wealthy city that offers the world's richest people exactly what they value most. Not luxury, not excitement, not attention, privacy, stability, and the absolute certainty that tomorrow will look exactly like today. That is Geneva, a city that does not want to be famous, a city that would prefer you never made this video, a city that has perfected the art of being invisible while holding the keys to empires. If this changed how you see wealth, privacy, and power, hit like right now. Subscribe if you want to see more cities like this broken down layer by layer, and tell me in the comments, would you live in Geneva if money were no object, or does the cold social culture make it a deal breaker? I will see you in the next one.